Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some PGA DFS picks and lineup advice. FanDuel and DraftKings, the WGC Workday Championship, a loaded field. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. We're going to be here for about 30 minutes or so, breaking down this slate, looking at. Give me 1 second, guys. Had some audio reverb in my ears, but we're good now. So what's up? Again, we're going to be here for about 30 minutes or so, looking at the slate from a high level, talking about a variety of things here. Give me 1 second. Let me get it back on my side. All right. So, had, of course, technical difficulties when I'm by myself, but we're back. So what's up? So, again, 30 minutes, breaking down the slate, looking at how I use the OccupyFantasy.com tools to look at how to create my lineups. I'm not a PGA expert by any means. That's why we hired Niramata to write our plugs. And he does a great job, a fantastic job. We have the Occupy model at our disposal as well. And then we have the Occupy Fantasy Lineup Builder, which you see on screen here. Let's get back here now. And again, so if you have questions throughout this stream, go ahead and hop in the chat and we will answer them live here for you. But I'm mostly going to show my process and how I build lineups. Again, this is a different event with just 72 golfers in the field. 5 or 10 of those golfers don't even have a realistic chance of coming close to winning. It's a no-cut event. So it's really interesting from a variety of perspectives. And it's a lot different than our recent events. And I got to say, I put a lot of effort into PGA recently. It's the one sport I haven't conquered yet personally. I've gotten close. 2 of the past 3 weeks have featured top 20 finishes in the big GPP on DraftKings. Again, I am going lighter this week because of the no-cut event and the difference in strategy. And we'll talk about that here shortly too. While you're here, if you like what you see, go ahead and click that subscribe button below. Get access to all of our videos as soon as they're released here on YouTube. You'll be notified of any live streams. Give us that thumbs up. And again, if you have questions, hop in the chat. So what you see on screen here is our daily plug, OccupyFantasy.com, for members only. Our PGA writer, Niramata, perennial top PGA DFS player, he puts in his top picks every single week, and then more importantly talks about lineup strategies for each individual event based on the field and a variety of other inputs to give you the optimal lineup strategy for FanDuel and DraftKings. And as we get to here in a second, you'll see it's a slightly modified version of our Occupy approach than you normally would see. So as we get started here, the number one thing I always look at before I start building my lineups, I always wait for this Wednesday update. And I'm going to go full screen here just so we can see the full daily plug. You won't have to see my face anymore. There we go. And if we scroll down here, every Wednesday, Niramata comes in and posts the betting market update moves, which is probably the most important thing because a variety of studies have shown that Pinnacle closing lines, Pinnacle Sports is they take the sharpest action most of the time in PGA, and their closing lines are some of the most predictive for high golf finishes, and as a result, high DFS scores. And the nice thing about it is the fact that these lines can move, but the DFS salaries don't change, give us an edge that we can take advantage of. If you're better and you're looking to beat Pinnacle's lines, most of the time, most sportsbooks just copy Pinnacle's moves or other sharp sportsbooks moves. There's really not an edge unless you're ahead of the game. But in PGA DFS, we can actually take advantage of that. So it's it's nice to see these big moves and know that they'll be undervalued. And when we combine some of these moves with low ownership, then that's when we really have great tournament plays. So you see here on screen here, this was posted Wednesday afternoon. Tommy Fleetwood, Adam Scott, John Rahm, Justin Thomas, Bryson, all saw moves in their odds to win markets at Pinnacle. And a percentage here is the reduction in odds. So if Fleetwood saw a 25% reduction in odds, let's say he was plus 1,000, Now he's plus 750. Those aren't the actual odds, but just giving you the example. A move here is a good thing for their odds to win and a good thing for your DFS lineups. Now, since this was posted, 4 more players were hit at Pinnacle. Victor Hovland and Matthew Wolff, Tyrrell Hatton, and Brooks Koepka. So 4 more names to add to this list. And for me, that's personally where I start. I'll look at this list and see, all right, which guys have high ownership from this list, which have low ownership from this list. And the one that sticks out to me is Matthew Wolff. And because in a field of this size, of this nature, we don't give very many low-owned plays. And the fact that Matthew Wolff projects for around 5% ownership on DraftKings, in a slate where in an event where it's tough to get leverage, Matthew Wolff is one guy I'd be looking at for tournaments, and he's a guy that I would be playing in a good amount of my lineups just to get leverage as we talk about some of these lineup strategies. The second thing I look at, obviously, is Niramata's picks in the daily plug. He'll write up 6 or 7 guys, list 4 or 5 other golfers he likes, and that should also be the primary players in your player pool when you're building. Again, that's occupyfantasy.com, and if you scroll down here on the screen, you'll see all of Niramata's top plays. Again, the link is in the description below for the daily plug. And the final piece of information that I look at is the Occupy model. And that ranks every golfer on the slate. FanDuel and DraftKings has projected ownership, live odds moves for every golfer. And once I look there, I'm actually going to pull up OccupyFantasy.com lineup builder, which can help us in a variety of ways, right? Even if you don't build 150 lineups or 20 lineups every week, having access to the lineup builder is a great tool because, one, it's a simplified version of the model, easier to read. Plus, it also gives you the ability to just run lineups and see what the most optimal approach is given the model. And the fact that you can adjust numbers, maybe give players some boost if they're in the line moves, or maybe give players some boost if they're one of Niramata's picks, and see what the best approach is. We talked about this in our NHL stream earlier this week, just running the builder to see what comes up. It is a great way to approach your PGA DFS lineups. All right, we got some more people in here. Again, if you have questions, it is 10:22. We'll be here till about 10:30, 10:45 or so, answering your questions about PGA DFS, building some lineups, talking about the right approach. And the reason we're doing this so late, close to lock, is a lot of people have questions and are thinking about the final 1 and 2 spots in our lineup. So we're here to answer those questions for you. But then also we want as much information as possible from the betting markets. Again, lineups would change if there's more time to build lineups, right? My lineups right now are going to be different if the lock was pushed back 2 hours or 6 hours or a full day. The more information we can have, the better. And the fact that we have this information gives us the best complete look at the slate, doing it so close to lock. But again, if you guys prefer we do this earlier in the week, let me know. We're always open to discussions. Let us know in the chat or comment on the video after the fact. You can always join our Discord channel as well, occupyfantasy.com/Discord for instructions on how to join and get your questions answered there and talk to me and Niramata, our PGA DFS expert. All right, so let's go back to the daily plug, and I want to pull up the lineup strategy section in particular. So here, lineup strategies. Every single week, Niramata comes in here and talks about how to build lineups for this particular week and any nuggets he's seen from historical events or comparable events. And if we look down here, I mean, this is really the key. You know, at Occupy Fantasy, we're big on lineup construction and finding our leverage over the field that way. And for me, I don't know a damn thing about golf, right? I've learned a little bit over the past year or so working with Niramata. The fact is, all my leverage and my success comes from the form of lineup construction and getting leverage over the field. And these 4 tips are really how you should build every lineup on FanDuel or DraftKings this week. And if you can't read, I'll recap. But you want at least 2 single-digit projected owned players per lineup. If you can't get that, 3 to 4 of those guys in that middle range, 10 to 15, 10 to 14%. Or if you do play a couple of those high-owned golfers, get at least 1 5% golfer in there. Hint, Matthew Wolff. And then if you can't do that for whatever reason, then maybe ignore the top of the field, the top 5 or 6 golfers, and see how that works out. So fortunately, we can do all of these rules, or at least get a close approximation in the lineup builder. So let's head back to the lineup builder here. And let's see here. I've already added a couple rules here. And I've added 2 rules, in fact. This one is a low ownership one, where if any of these players are in the lineup and I put in the top owned players that are over 15%, I need at least one guy under 5% ownership. Easy rule there. And anytime Dustin Johnson, Harris English, Neiman are in the lineup, we'll get at least one 5% owned guy. Now, you have to be careful here because we could get some trash players with this rule. We'd have to modify on the back end after we build. And then you also have a max rule, and I put this in every PGA DFS event that I'm building for. Max of 2 players over 15% ownership. That's part of the general Occupy Fantasy lineup construction, and the fact we want to do it on this event as well. You can easily set this rule: max 2 players over 15% ownership. We'll never get 2 of those guys in that high. We'll never get 3 or more of those high-owned guys in the same lineup. All right, before we build, we do have a question from Kyle. It says, anyone the model likes that you are fading because of price or performance, whatever it may be. So let's look here. I've sorted by OF index in the OccupyFantasy.com lineup builder. Remember, OF index is our proprietary metric that ranks every golfer on a variety of inputs. And generally what I'll look for here is, are any bettors on these golfers? Is Niramata on these golfers? Any line moves at all? And if none of the check boxes are marked, then maybe it'll cause for some pause, and maybe I'll lower some allocation. Because the 2 guys that stick out obviously here in the Occupy model from that perspective are these 2 here: EVR, Kokrak, whose name I literally always butcher. I'm sure someone in the chat will tell me how to pronounce his name accurately. But these 2 guys, right? Super cheap, below 10% ownership. No moves in the betting market, really. Niramata didn't write them up. So they're really high-risk plays at best. But remember, the Occupy model is built for high-risk contests. So if you're looking for those sub-10% guys, I would look no further than these 2. And again, to answer Kyle's question, I'm not necessarily fading anyone that the model is high on because it's back-tested and those guys are high for a reason. But I may limit my allocation. I don't want 50% of EVR, for example, because, one, I don't want to shave 10 years off my life expectancy by playing him. But I can still double the field, get 15, 20%, still have massive leverage, but not be completely overweight. So I hope that answers the question. Let's go back and sort by ownership here. So I'm going to go ahead and run these lineups. I put in some basic settings, build 150 lineups. We'll see what the lineup builder spits out as far as exposures go. And then we can always go back and tweak. Oh, I have to thumbs up players. I guess that would help if I did that, huh? All right, so let's do that. So while we're waiting for the lineup builder to build, we'll be up for 10 minutes or so. It's about 10:40 Eastern. Slate does lock at 10:58 Eastern. Any questions you have, hop in the chat. I know people are probably struggling with some last-minute lineup tips, choosing between players. And all right, we got 150 lineups built here. So let's see, let's go to player exposure. I'm just curious to see, and we have this on the lowest setting, so it's the most optimal setting based on the model. And no surprise, right? Like the guys we just talked about, Kokrak and EVR, top 4 exposures, something I would never want to do, right? Something I would never want to do. I don't want 35, 40% ownership to these guys when the model is the only source of information projecting this. Now, if they had a line move, or if Niramata likes them, or I see a couple other bettors are on them, then maybe I'll increase some exposure. But let's go back to the build here really quickly. Let's sort by OF index. And I'm going to I'm going to cap my exposure to these 2 guys to 20%. This still gives me roughly 3 times leverage on the field if the ownership holds up at 7%. So let's run this, and I'm curious to see what happens. If you like what you see here, and you like what we're talking about, again, we haven't done PGA streams a lot in recent weeks. But if you do like it, go ahead and click that subscribe button below. We're trying to do live streams every single week here on YouTube. And if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. Let us know that we should do more of these types of videos. Any questions you have about the slate, go ahead and hop in the chat. Abraham Answer, as Nigel points out in the chat, is cheap on FanDuel, and it is his birthday weekend. I mean, We play the birthday narrative in every sport. Might as well play it in golf as well. Answer was trapped in Texas last week. Still played in the event. Didn't play that great. Hopefully now he's had a week to knock some of that rust off after not being able to play any, and can pick it up a bit here. All right, 150 lineups rebuilt. Let's go back to player exposures. DJ, Adam Scott, Koepka, Rory, Xander. What kind of sticks out to me here is the fact that, there are a bunch of studs up here and that we can fit in multiple guys. If it was a tougher slate where we couldn't fit in studs, we may see more exposure to some of those mid-tier guys. But I think the one that actually sticks out to me most here is Adam Scott. Number 2 exposed player in this initial optimal run of 150. We see the dice mark here, which means that Nirmata has written him up in the plug. These little indicators in the lineup builder let us know that they're a top play in the daily plug. And if we go back here, we see that if we sort by OF index, Adam Scott at just 8,200 on DraftKings is our number 3 overall play in the model. Love to see that when the model and Nirmata line up. It's like MMA when Jake's the sheet lines up with our top play in the model. It's a smash spot every single time. Love to see when Nirmata is lined up with a model's top play. And then to get the trifecta, we go back to the daily plug. Adam Scott, 22% move at Pinnacle in the betting markets. So this is really the spot, the ultimate spot you should be looking for when it comes to PGA DFS and working with the Occupy Fantasy tools. You see a guy that sharp bettors or sharp sportsbooks have moved their odds, that's always a great sign. The Occupy model identifies that spot as well. And then Nirmata, who knows golf, scours the news and knows the ins and outs of players' mentalities and how they're hitting and how they're feeling, how they fit the course. That context is the third piece. And when they all line up, Adam Scott should be one of the heaviest exposed players if you're making PGA DFS lineups for this event. Let's see. So Nitro is in the chat. He said he had to, and again, because we're on YouTube now, you do have to create an account. And he said he had to link his business account. So he's prioritizing approach and green play. So Scott, Fleetwood, Rahm, Morikawa, Answer. Yeah, I like that. So this course is interesting. We didn't really talk about it, but first time a PGA event has been played on this course. We have some quotes about how the course is going to play. We know the designer of the course and how his other courses typically play. And I think a lot of people can agree that approach play is going to be one of the biggest drivers of success this week. So no surprise in that sense that guys like Fleetwood and Scott were hit the hardest at Pinnacle in the betting markets, right? The guys, if you scroll down here, Nirmata adds some context to the moves every single week. Fleetwood and Scott are two of the top 5 to 10 ball strikers in the world today. So we should continue to place emphasis on approach play, which is just adds fuel to the fire that those are the important metrics. Kyle asks, were you good with the 20% Herbert in your last build? Absolutely not. Like, not a chance I would be good with that. Let's go back to the lineup builder here. We'll go back to player exposures. Right? Here we go. Herbert, and this comes from the 5% rule, right? I mean, Lucas Herbert, 7%. I wouldn't be thrilled with any of these guys in that low end outside of Matthew Wolff, right? Like Herbert, some of these, like these two guys here, I will say I'm okay with. Rasmus, who's not on FanDuel for a reason. We've been trying to get him in the player pool for 9 months. Thomas Detry, at least these guys have some European success, right? Rasmus in particular, prospect, young gun. But guys like Herbert and some of these other guys, I mean, Aaron Rye, this is where you have to really get back into the lineup builder. And again, we'll go back and limit exposure to those guys or just X them out completely. And if that's the case, because if we go back to the builder, and we look at projected ownership, scrolling down one time, let me sort by ownership here. And we're looking for those sub 5% guys. I mean, Homa and Champ and Hideki are kind of close here. Fleetwood is 6%. I would probably, if we go back and edit this rule, maybe say, let's see, low, maybe go under 6% just to get Fleetwood in there. 6% is close enough if we round up. But guys, I mean, Fleetwood would fit the bill at 6%, and then Matthew Wolff at 4.6%. Like those are the guys I really feel comfortable with as we move forward. I mean, Rasmus maybe does have a good OF index, same with Detry, but some of these other guys can't say I'd be playing them very much, if at all. So I would probably X them out of my builds, assuming I'm building earlier, and just roll with some of these guys I feel more confident in. Fleetwood at 6% and Wolf at 4.5%, both who got hit at Pinnacle. Those are the guys you'd want to play if dipping that deep. All right, folks, 5 more minutes left of this show. Let's go back to the daily plug. I'm going to bring my face back into the mix here. Hello there. So, again, this is the most important part, the lineup construction aspect, because, and I think another thing that's interesting about this event that we didn't really discuss yet is that sometimes we'll see players in PGA get over that 20, 25, sometimes 30% mark as far as ownership goes. Because there are so many damn good plays in this event, it's kind of, let's go back to the builder just really quickly, and we'll see that, you know, the ownership is pretty flat up top. We got Rahm getting up to 20%, but nothing higher than that. A bunch of guys 15 to 20%. So really flattened ownership. So it makes it really tough because when you have an event like this and you have guys that are this good, you want to get a piece of everyone if you're making multiple lineups, but you really can't. You have to take stands somewhere, and whether that's fading some guys that are high owned, it's going to be tough. PGA is all about leverage, right? It's such a hard sport to predict with its variance. You got to get leverage elsewhere, and that comes in going over the field on certain players, and it comes with your lineup construction leverage. So ideally, if you follow the tips in the plug and you go overweight on some plays, again, look for those plays that line up from a variety of sources. If there's bettors that you follow or other sources that you follow, that's great. Like we don't have a control on your DFS information. But if there's some guys that you follow or girls that you follow that you trust their picks and their advice, and that lines up with the model, or it lines up with Niramata's picks, or it lines up with the betting market moves, that's all you need. You're looking for just multiple pieces of confirmation that a guy's a good play, especially at lower ownership. And for me, Adam Scott, again, we'll go back to him. If I can find where Adam Scott is, let's sort by OF index again. Adam Scott, I mean, just when he checks all the boxes at 9% ownership, this is a guy, if I was making one lineup, he would definitely be in. If I was making multiple lineups, he'd be in majority. And if I was building 20 to 150 lineups, I would have, again, it's hard to find leverage in a small field event. I would probably have 40 to 50% exposure. And you may think that's insane, but ways to find leverage in fields like this is going heavy 40, 50, 60% on guys that are 10% or less. And Adam Scott easily checks the box. Now, he could easily go out there and shoot 76 on both days. Be, plus 12 heading into the weekend or whatever, or plus 8 heading into the weekend. And we're screwed, but that's the nature of golf. But the fact is, he shouldn't be 9% owned when all of our sources are telling us that he's a great play. So that's the things you should be looking for. All right, 2 minutes left to go. If you have any last-minute questions, go ahead and hit up the chat, and I'll answer them here for you. Reminder to subscribe here to Occupy Fantasy on YouTube. Get notified whenever we have any more live streams. We're trying to do these every single day for a variety of sports. Go ahead and click that subscribe button, please. Give us a thumbs up. We always appreciate that. Any questions, again, in the chat, you can comment on the video. Any last-minute questions after the stream ends, hit up the Discord channel, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. If you like what you've seen, you want to become a member, occupyfantasy.com. Get access to the daily plug with Niramata's top plays every single week and his preferred lineup strategies for each event. Get access to the Occupy model. Ranks every golfer on the slate, FanDuel, and DraftKings with projected ownership. And then you can use the occupyfantasy.com lineup builder to build up to 150 lineups, or we didn't actually showcase the single builder mode, but gives optimal lineup construction for each slate. As you fill out your lineup, these boxes will light up green if you hit the criteria. Gives you an easy way to hand build optimal lineups. So, hope you enjoyed this. Again, give us a thumbs up if you want us to do more PGA videos. We always appreciate that. And until next time, we'll be doing a League of Legends stream either tonight or tomorrow. Follow us on Twitter at Occupy Fantasy to be notified of when that goes live. You can follow me on Twitter at BrianJesterFF. So, appreciate everyone listening. Good luck in this event. And we'll talk to you at our next stream.